Welcome back to the Not Carrie Bradshaw YouTube channel. In this video, we need to have a family discussion about Jada Pinkett Smith. Let me preface this by saying, if you follow me on my Instagram, you know, or you should have some indication, that Jada Pinkett Smith is one of the style beauty icons of my youth that I still, every day, my goal is to strive to that level of flyness. My personality is an amalgamation of a bunch of characters that I watched when I was little because I was exposed to way too much film and TV. One of those characters is Peaches from Low Down Dirty Shame, okay? The other people who are like my style influences, number one, Michelle Pfeiffer's character from Scarface. I'm not gonna tell y'all how young I was watching that movie, but it was formative, okay? I promise I'm not a drug dealer or a psychopath, but Michelle Pfeiffer's style stuck with me, okay? There's also Halle Berry, Strictly Business. There's Nia Long, everything Nia Long ever did, okay? There's Toni Braxton, still to this day, baddie, okay? I strive every day to be that level of a 90s baddie with short hair. So I say this as someone who loves Jada Pinkett Smith, as someone who, she's been a part of my life, my whole life, in one way or another, from A Different World to Red Table Talk, which we will get into today. This is no shade towards Jada directly, but more so, let's all, here's my imaginary red table, let's all be held accountable here today. I think that this most recent viral headline is a really good learning opportunity for all of us. Now, let me also say, so number one, I like Jada Pinkett Smith. Number two, I don't think that we interrogated her relationship with August Alsina enough because she's an older woman and he's a younger man. I think we needed to look at that a little bit more. I think that she needed to be held more accountable for possibly emotionally manipulating a very vulnerable young black man. Number three, I appreciate that she and Will are on a quest to demystify their marriage because there were a lot of rumors going on about their marriage for a really long time. And I appreciate any couple who is brave enough to say, this is what happens behind closed doors. Because I do believe that we look at marriage, we look at relationships, we look at sex, we look at all of these things in a very unhealthy, fairy tale, industrial complex, shouts out to Franny. We look at all of those things from a very unrealistic, very fantastical perspective. And I do appreciate the coupled, partnered people who share with us the real. However, my third point before I get into this conversation is that I am so tired of hearing about Will and Jada's marriage. At one point, I know the public was speculating a lot, and so they were like, well, let's just tell people, I guess. And now at this point, I'm overwhelmed. Now, one of my really good friends made a very good point to me today that she said she actually watched the clip and read the transcript that people were reacting to on Twitter saying like, damn, Will need to just leave Jada, all this stuff like that. And my friend, I didn't bother to watch the clip. I didn't read the transcript. I just saw that Jada and Will's marriage was trending again. And I was like, please leave us out of it for just a month. Let us have a quarter where we're not hearing about your marriage, good, bad, or indifferent. And we had a conversation for about 30 minutes about how she didn't say anything that wasn't wrong, but people are always encouraging Will to leave Jada. And I was like, you know what? This is, number one, people don't read. As a content creator, I cannot tell you how infuriating it is for me to make information as readily available to people as possible, and they still will ask me to somehow regurgitate information that I've already provided. So people don't read beyond headlines, number one. And number two, we are much less forgiving of women being imperfect in marriages than we are men. So even though Will has also, admittedly not been an ideal husband in his relationship. For some reason, we look at Jada with a much more critical eye than we do Will, because for some reason, patriarchy, we expect for women to be much more perfect in relationships than men. We have set a standard that men are allowed to falter in their marriages, in parenting, in all of these things in ways that women just are not. Obviously, I'm speaking from heteronormative perspectives. What Jada actually said to Gwyneth Paltrow is something that I think all people of all gender identities, of all sexualities, we all need to arrive at that place. What Jada actually said is that, from the clip that I watched, it is really hard to have a conversation with your partner about sexual gratification, because you just expect for a person who loves you to know what you need. And you have to get to a place in your maturity, your identity, your own personal sexuality, where you are comfortable talking to another person about what it is that you need, not only physically, but emotionally in a relationship. So something that I've been trying to write about for a minute, but I keep getting these creative blocks, so I'm doing it on this video right now. We just are not socialized enough about sex beyond biology, and even what we learn from a biological standpoint is not, it's not inclusive. It's not realistic enough. Like, for example, as a woman, if you took sex ed and they told you what vaginal discharge was, they told you what it was and they described it, but you didn't really know what it was supposed to look like, right? There was no example. You were too embarrassed to talk to your friends about it. Like, if you're in like 5th grade or like 6th grade, you're not going to ask your friends like, well, what does yours look like? Because we're taught shame about our bodies from a very early age. So you end up learning even the biology of your body later in life because you are taught to be ashamed of it so soon. And sex is a huge part of that. What we're taught is that men know everything. Men's masculinity is predicated on how many women they can have sex with. And the assumption is that if they have sex with a lot of women, that they're really good at it. And someone on Twitter made a really good point that just because a man has sex with a lot of women doesn't mean that he's good at it, because are those women empowered enough to give him any feedback? So something that I and some of my close friends, something that I have realized from conversations with my close friends is that a lot of us have been having sex from a very unempowered perspective, because we were just taught that men know everything, and that if you do or say anything that could harm or bruise their ego, that that's the worst thing that you can possibly do as a woman. As a woman who dates men, you are supposed to just do everything in service to their ego. That's kind of what society tells us. And unless you were raised in a progressive and emotionally aware and available home where somebody was able to teach you differently, you don't come to know that that's not true until later in life. And there are still people, men, women, non-binary, trans, all kinds of people to this day who still have not had their awareness activated in that way. So you don't really even know what your pleasure as a woman is supposed to feel like. And you also don't really know how to tell someone how to give you that pleasure until you get later in life. And some of us who get married younger never arrive at that place in a more open, like feel it out kind of like test the field kind of way. So if you get married at like 25, 26, 27, you might not get that awareness that I should probably really start telling my very committed partner, my husband, my fiance, that I really don't enjoy when he does X, Y, and Z. How am I supposed to do that? Because you are afraid of bruising his ego. And I think that's what Jada was saying. And not even from a sexual perspective, but from an emotional perspective. It is so hard. I am 34 years old. I have been in therapy for 5 years now. I'm just now learning how to effectively communicate boundaries with people in my life as a whole. It's really hard to tell people what you need because, like Gwyneth Paltrow and Jada Pinkett were saying in that video, you just assume that people who love you know how to care about you. And that's just not true. And we have to get to a place in our society where we demystify and take out the fantasy and take out the over romanticized idea that we have of interpersonal relationships so that we can have real conversations about pleasure, about emotional safety and vulnerability and all of these things. And sure, it might not be sexy in the moment or off rip to say, hey, I really want to talk to you about like what would give me more pleasure, or this thing happened the last time we had sex that I wasn't comfortable with, or is there something going on with you because I noticed that X, Y, and Z happened. We've got to get to a place where everybody can be comfortable expressing what they need so that we can have more enjoyment of each other. Otherwise, you are just in service to another person. And I think that it makes sense for you to have more of a say-so of who and what goes in or on or around your body. That's your agency. You should be able to communicate that properly. And if you are in a relationship with a person that makes you feel bad for saying what you need, that's just not a person that you need to be with. And that's the really hard part that I think a lot of us don't want to face. We don't even want to face the possibility that I really like this person. I really love this person. I really, want to continue being with this person. And if I say this thing, I may lose them. We got to abandon the scarcity mindset, because if you lose them, someone better will come along. I cannot tell you how many people across all kinds of relationships I have held on to so much in my life because I had this fear that there weren't enough other good people in the world to replace them if I let them go. That's just not true. So what we can learn from what Jada actually said in that interview is that we've got to become more empowered, and we got to empower each other in our relationships to create more pleasurable experiences, sexually and otherwise. Like, people just need safe spaces to express themselves, and her and Will got together so young. So like I said, that place of being unempowered as a woman, as a Black woman, and not really having a healthy or mature identity with our own sexuality, it takes time to get there. And I think that that's what Jada was talking about, that like, I recognize now that that's something that I need. And I love that Graham was like, yeah, I don't have time for that no more, because Grammy is older. And she's like, I abandoned that a while ago. I need you to tell me what you need, and I'm going to tell you what I need. That's, I think, just how relationships thrive in a better way. It might not be sexy in the beginning, but it can be sexy later. It might not be super comfortable or fulfilling in the beginning, but it can be that, down the road. That's what it means for relationships to evolve. The other thing, I think, as a society, we've got to stop putting so much on these relationships. My favorite celebrity couple is Tamia and Grant Hill. I don't know shit about them. If I wanted to, I could Google when they got married. I guess I could Google to see how many kids they have, but I love that I don't know nothing about their relationship. I love that. We got to stop looking at people's relationships as goals. We got to stop trying to we've got to stop romanticizing that stuff, because then you find yourself just trying to copy what they have, and that may not be in alignment with who you are. And I think it's a very fear-based thing to even shape your relationship desires around that of people who you don't even know, because you don't want to go on the journey of what it means to discover for yourself what you really need in a relationship. Like, I think, we love to celebrate the glow up story of Sierra going from Future, and that very public breakup, to Russell Wilson, who's just this ideal man, blah, 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 blah. We never hear anything bad about that relationship, but I'm sure because they are two human people and they have children, I'm sure that relationship is not perfect, but I don't need to know what those imperfections are. I don't need to see all the good, and I don't need to see all the bad. Ain't none of that my business. I know it's not going to happen, but I would love it if we could get to a place where it's just like, that ain't my business and I can figure this out for myself. So I think that Jada is actually giving us what she wants us to have, as opposed to trying to keep up with what the public's demand is of their relationship. But it is disheartening to see the way the media, myself included, will, pull out the most salacious part of an interview and make that the headline, and that's what everyone talks about until the next news cycle. I think we have to, just with everything that has happened in the world, it's really important that we learn how to be more critical of reading and like actually sourcing information. And I just didn't even look at that stuff because I was like, I don't care. But this did give me pause. And once I actually watched that video, I was like, Jada's making a very important point about what it means to be an empowered person who stands up for what they need in their relationships, and the need and the desire to create safe spaces to just share those things, to be able to receive that information and that feedback without your ego being crushed, and also being able to say those things. And you don't have to be brutal. You can be honest, but you can say things with compassion, and you can approach those conversations with curiosity over conviction. But we should be at a place where we have enough agency to say what we want in our bodies. I just think that that's fair. Who am I? So those are my thoughts on the latest Will and Jada headline. I'm sure another one will surface any day now. I would love just a break. But she did make a valid point that I've been wanting to write about. I'm still going to try to write about, but I felt like I could verbally express it more readily today after having a conversation with my close friend, and shouts out to her for inspiring this video. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, subscribe, and watch my other videos as well. Talk to you guys soon. Bye.